Hi everybody, thanks for your time. I'll try and put the conference back on schedule by being a little bit quick. I joined Basho on the 3rd of December 2012, and I'm still learning. It's a very steep learning curve to join a company like Basho with very intelligent guys, one of whom will follow me and deep dive into one aspect of the technology for you. What I'm going to do is just introduce our product, Riak, at a high level, talk about some of the use cases, and talk about some of the reasons why people are interested in using Riak. How many people in the room are already using Riak? Hands up. Okay. How many people in the room have never played with Riak at all? Oh, awesome. So you are the people I'm speaking to right now. And those guys who know much more about Riak than I do, please keep it to yourself. I don't want anybody to know. The reason that products like Riak exist is because the computing landscape has changed. And I don't want to talk to you about cloud computing, and I don't really want to talk to you about big data. But the fact is that now there is a difference to, say, 10 years ago. Some of the companies that we're working with right now tell us that they are HP's biggest customer. They have HP Superdomes with 256 cores. They're Microsoft's biggest customer with petabytes and petabytes of SQL Server databases. But this is an expensive way to build big systems. Those servers are expensive, those database licenses are expensive, and operationally it's expensive to run those environments. So the change is now commodity hardware is available. You can buy fairly cheap servers and buy lots of them. And that way, not just reduce the expense for your company, but also get a lot more bang for your buck. You end up with a lot more memory, a lot more current, a lot more power. And I think that's the major difference, and that is the change in IT that has allowed us to develop products like Riak, which I'll explain to you now. But it is also the case that there is a lot more data being created now than there is existing capacity to store it, and we need to try and catch up, because the change over the last year or so, according to the analysts and some of the companies that I work with, is some of this data that we're not storing actually would potentially have a value. So we want to harness it so that we can analyze it. How are we going to do that? How are we going to catch up given the rate of data growth? Everybody is saying the same thing. Everybody in our own community, that distributed systems are the future. But the fact is, this isn't widely accepted. In 2014, Gartner says only 20% of Fortune 1000 companies will be investing in distributed systems. So the point that I'd like to make is that this is an exciting place to be. It's early on in the cycle. We can catch the wave early and really make a lot of money. We can help to change the world over the next few years because we're early, and that's the reason that I've joined Basho just in December. What Basho is doing is taking Amazon standards and creating products so that everybody can take advantage of some of the technologies that Amazon has described or actually built. Pavlo mentioned in his introduction the Amazon Dynamo paper. How many people have read it? Awesome. So Basho has implemented a faithful implementation of Dynamo in Riak. So hopefully that gives most of you straight away an understanding of what we've done. We've opted to focus on availability rather than consistency, because we believe that availability of systems is usually the most important factor. That's a philosophy that we argue about with some of the people that we engage with every day. But for the vast majority of systems that we see, we think availability is critical. So Basho is almost 110 employees, founded several years ago, but only in 2011 we came to market with Riak version 1.0. So it's an open source database, but we control it. We support it. We offer training, professional services, and we are bringing Riak to the market directly to you guys as an open source freeware database, also with an enterprise distribution if you want support on some enterprise features. And we've built on top of it more recently a cloud storage platform, which is quite like Amazon's S3, which you can implement in your own data center. We're doing that with partners like Erlang Solutions and their parent company Trifork, who are investors in Basho, as well as other partners like Yahoo, Microsoft, Citrix, and others. 2011 was a good year for us. We acquired a lot of pretty good logos that we're very proud of. 2012 was even better again, and tomorrow night we'll be hosted by Zing in Hamburg for a Riak community meetup. They became a customer just a few months ago, and we're particularly excited about the meetup tomorrow, so please tweet your friends about that Hamburg meetup tomorrow. What I want to talk to you about is distributed systems, high availability, schemaless databases, NoSQL databases, and what sort of performance you can expect. So at a really high level, and I was speaking to some people at lunchtime, so I think it is right to start at a very, very, very high level. With Riak, we're talking about clustering a few databases, clustering a few servers together. We're recommending that people start with no fewer than 5 servers. That is a little bit difficult for some people because they've played with, say, MongoDB, and they're used to maybe just needing 1 server for their experiment. But you will need 3 copies of your data for integrity purposes. You'll want another machine that you can take offline for maintenance. You'll want another machine that can simply fail, and you'll still have your 3 copies of your data. That's critical for us. And although it's expensive for some use cases, if you have an application that requires scale, 5 nodes isn't going to be a big deal for you. But it's a pretty good qualification point. Our philosophy is to build for failure. And I guess because you're at an Erlang conference, you're thinking the same way. Some of you I know are here thinking about whether Erlang might be a useful tool for you in future. I think this is the critical point. Our philosophy is that we want to start building systems now, understanding the failure as a normal part of operations. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir on that one. So the first major differentiator for Riak versus some of the other NoSQL and other databases is that it's masterless. There's no master-slave situation, so therefore there's no single point of failure. And there are other benefits with that architecture too that we'll get on to. One of the companies that we work with that chose Riak for its high availability was Enstratus. Have you heard of them? No, you have now. So this is an advertisement for Enstratus. So these guys are a public and private cloud management platform as a service. And they say that they need to be more highly available than any of the clouds that their platform is asked to monitor and manage. It's pretty common for us now to talk to organizations who are using MySQL and looking for something new. The reason that they're looking for something new is sometimes because they need very high availability and they need to get away from this master-slave architecture. Riak is also non-relational, and I'm calling it non-relational because NoSQL is a little bit useless as a term. Basically, Riak has no schema. One of the guys in our office tells me every day that the advantage is there are no schema migrations. And I guess for people who are coming from the world of Oracle and SQL Server and MySQL, from an operations perspective, that starts to sound like a really big deal. So some of the things that you don't get, though, if you choose a non-relational database, you won't have locks, you won't have joins, and a lot of people are saying to us, hey, how does your database handle this situation or that situation? And oftentimes they're talking about business logic. One of our most common conversations with developers is where we say, our philosophy is that the business logic for your application is something you should get to decide. We're not going to implement rules that will constrain your creativity in our database. But that does mean that there is more for you to consider than there was when you were using an Oracle database, for example. Alert Logic. Who has heard of Alert Logic? Security services provider. No. Well, another advertisement then. So another replacement of MySQL. But the important thing here was the operational efficiency that they got. Much more highly performant than their MySQL environment, and allows them to grow very rapidly at 5 terabytes a day. So they're constantly increasing the size of their environment and adding new features to their service. The fact that Riak is non-relational allows them to change the way allows them to change the services they offer on a regular basis in a rapid way and grow their business very quickly. So we talk about high speed. As I said, because we are focused on availability, we are sacrificing performance to some extent. But with Riak, we are offering consistent performance. So you know when you add a node how performance is going to be affected. In general, I hear guys talking to customers about we would expect you to have a sort of an 8 millisecond response time from the database. There are terms and conditions apply to that statement, but that's roughly where most of our customers seem to be. You get an even distribution of load for both, when you're writing to the database or querying from the database, it's evenly distributed load. And one of the interesting use cases that we found is where organizations thought they needed in-memory cache, and actually when we re-architect for Riak, it turns out that we can replace some of that. And some of you are probably dealing with high availability issues with Redis and so on. These are interesting conversations that we're beginning to have. Best Buy. Hands up. Anybody heard of Best Buy? Ah, yes. Best Buy is a good example of a company that switched to Riak for performance, which, as I say, wasn't sort of the architecture we were going for when we built the database, but because the performance scales and because it's predictable, it was suitable for them. And crucially, at Christmas time or during peak periods for them, they can scale their cluster and be confident that they will meet the performance that the business is expecting it will require. One of the really nice things about Riak is that it's Devops friendly, and Erlang Solutions' parent company Trifork has a good example of a customer, the Danish Health Authority, where their Riak environment, they say, in a blog post which you can read, is about 95% cheaper than their Oracle environment was. And most of those savings were found in operations. Adding nodes to a cluster is very, very easy. We had our sales team in San Francisco for a team meeting 2 weeks ago, and everyone on the sales team managed to set up Riak clusters and add and remove nodes within 15 minutes. These are salespeople. So that's pretty good. We like that stat. Mad Mimi. Anybody heard of Mad Mimi? You probably got tons of email from Mad Mimi and don't realize where it's coming from. These guys moved from MorDBMS to Riak because they didn't want to have to deal with sharding anymore. And actually, that's a complaint that we hear from a lot of people that we speak to. They want to get away from sharding. So probably one of the top reasons that people are looking at Riak. High availability, very large scale. And kind of in this same vein, another company called OpenX delivered about 4 trillion ads on their Riak cluster last year. So, very large scale. And I think the point I'm trying to make is, even at extremely large scale, from an operations perspective, Riak is still, fairly low touch. So we're not going to get into the depths of the Riak architecture today, but it's important to say that it's essentially HTTP friendly. Put, get, delete. There are also protocol buffers for some for Erlang, of course, also for client libraries for Java, for Ruby. There's one coming for D, for .NET. Anything I've missed? Who's got a language that they want support for that I haven't mentioned? Yeah, I said I mentioned Erlang first. It's the first one I said.
Not mentioned yet.
And I'll be fired later on. A couple of interesting things about it. Chris, who's coming on to speak after me, is going to talk about the depths of Riak Pipe, which is an underprivileged member of the Riak architecture, because we haven't been talking about it. And the truth is, I think most of the companies that we've been working with on Riak have sort of overlooked it. But recently it's come to the fore, and Chris is going to explain why we think it might become very useful. I mentioned the products we've built so far, so I'll skip on to a few use cases if I have time. So the two first use cases I want to talk to you about are for the cloud storage product. This is the object storage platform that you can put in your own server room. So Yahoo Japan and also AT&T have set up their cloud. Oh, very bad slide. I'm sorry. Well, what this says is that AT&T's cloud storage platform, which competes with Amazon, is built on Riak Cloud Storage, Riak CS. But I'm sorry about that. With the Riak database, there are a few use cases that I think might be interesting to some of you. AT&T have an mHealth platform, which is a consumer-facing app, and it's HIPAA compliant. A couple of people earlier on were talking about compliance, so I thought I'd include this. This essentially is an application that you use every day if you're concerned about being healthy. And when you go to your clinician, when you go to your GP or your doctor, you can bring the information from the mHealth app with you to speed diagnosis and to help the doctor understand your lifestyle. Sensor data seems to be one of the areas that is causing this massive acceleration in unstructured data growth. Temetra is a company in Ireland which is reading water meter, gas meter and electricity meters, pulling the information from almost every home in Ireland currently, moving into the UK soon, to a central repository, and allowing the water companies, the gas companies and the electricity companies to request reports from the system so that they can predict trends, so that they can do some individualization and so on. Growing very rapidly, and one of the reasons that Temetra chose this is because the data is streaming in from the meters all the time. They need a system that's very highly available, that will never go down. Voxer. Who's heard of Voxer? Walkie-talkie app. I think it's like number 5 or 6 most popular app. Number 4 it says on the slide. Most popular app on the App Store. Voxer is an interesting one for us. It's again growing 5 terabytes a day. And the take-up in the user community was so rapid in the beginning that they really needed something that was operations friendly, which is the main reason they say that they chose Riak. And their CTO tweeted a couple of weeks ago that in his primary Riak cluster he had 17 nodes go down at once, but his system kept running. It was a little bit slower than it should have been, but it remained alive, remained accepting of reads and writes. Anybody heard of Bump? 7th most downloaded iPhone app. I have a Windows phone, and I actually resent that everybody talks about iPhone applications, but this is the way it is. 800 million pieces of structural data in Riak. So stuff that you upload from your telephone, essentially. Very low latency. When you're dealing with consumer-based applications, one of the important things is to have your data close to your end users to minimize latency, and that's what Bump has done. Comcast, good project for us. We're delighted to have them as a customer, and they migrated from Amazon S3, which isn't really our goal. You know, we're very big fans of Amazon, so our message to people isn't get off Amazon and come to us. But there are times when hosting your data in your own data center is preferable to using the public cloud. And, you know, it was a very nice new customer for us to have for that use case. Again, Best Buy, which we spoke about already, so I'll skip. I'll finish on this one. This is interesting for me because this is a use case for rent.com, and it's about interest graphs. An interest graph is an analysis of you as an individual and your interests mined through your search patterns. So essentially they look at what are you interested in over time, and they build a picture of what you might be interested in future. This is an area that's going to explode, we're told. Yahoo's CEO has been talking a lot about it recently, and I'd be particularly keen to talk to anybody in the audience who maybe is thinking about interest graphs. I think it's a really interesting use case, and we'd like to learn more about it. So in summary, Riak runs on clusters of servers. It's highly available, it's schemaless, it's fast, it's scalable, developer-friendly, operations-friendly, and that's why I titled the presentation, You Need Riak. We've got version 1.3 coming out this week. So for those of you who I haven't been talking to for the last 20 minutes because you've already got Riak in production and you know more about it than I do, here's a little bit of news. Is this news for you? Hands up if you didn't know this was coming out this week. About 200 people put their hands up there. So the thing that we're most excited about is active anti-entropy. There are already features in Riak to help essentially maintain the integrity of your data. We're improving that now significantly, and we'll be happy to talk to you about that if that's an area you're interested in. The other area where we've put a lot of work into, which is an enterprise feature, so you have to buy the enterprise version of Riak to get this, is improved replication performance between data centers. So we built the product with the idea in mind that people would use this to replicate from one data center to another. But increasingly what people are doing with this is they're offloading for reporting purposes. So they're replicating from one Riak cluster to another nearby, and then they're doing some work, so like maybe some heavy MapReduce jobs. Recon, or ICON, is coming to Europe. It was launched in the States last year. It's, we believe, the first distributed systems conference, first distributed systems developer conference. And we have a venue, which is London City, but we don't have a date. It will be maybe towards October. And if any of you are interested in an invitation to that, please let us know before you leave, and we'll make sure that we email you when that event becomes available. We held it in San Francisco last year. It sold out. We had hundreds and hundreds of developers, all of our investors and partners speaking, lots of customers coming to talk about the challenges and solutions that they've found. And it's like a Riak Tech Talk, only on a very grand scale. And it seems to be well worthwhile. The feedback's really good. If you are interested in looking at Riak for your own use cases, one of the things that you might find is it's hard to explain back at work why you should use Erlang, maybe, or why you should use Riak. We'd like to support you with that. So if you would like Basho engineers to come and talk to your teams about your use cases and how Riak might help, then you can go to this link, and we will be absolutely delighted to come and help you do that. This is something that we do all the time. We've got dedicated engineers for this role, and the more of these we do, the better. So I'll finish. I'll give you back a few minutes. But before I do, does anybody have any questions that you want to ask right now?
Can you expand a bit more on the structure and how it works? Because we've seen a lot of companies using it, but I still don't know what they're using.
Okay. So which aspect of it would you like me to focus on?
How does it work?
So it's a key value database, where the data that you can put data in it using the HTTP call, and it will be in the form of a key and a value. So the key might be Stuart McCall, and the value might be my address. But in fact, the value can be JSON. So you can put almost any data into the database, into that value space. We organize those keys and values in buckets, and it's a very simple put and get system. So if you've come from sort of the RDBMS world, you're used to SQL. One of the differences you'll find is that React's not a database where you want to do transactions. But when you think about your use cases, you might find that a lot of your use cases would actually fit a key value database system. Because in a lot of use cases, all you're really doing is reading and writing data. Does that help?
Well, it helps, yeah. Is that all?
Yeah, I'm conscious that I don't want to...
There are many systems out there that are key value stores. I mean, what's your difference?
In the next talk, I can explain what a dynamo system is and how it applies to React.
Okay.
So hopefully that will answer your question. But if not, we can spend time later on. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much.